Have I ever mentioned how much I love Bob Dylan's music? I really do. I mean, this has been going on between me and Bob for a really long time. So today's show is about Bob Dylan, but it's really about the sound of his recordings. And I'm going to touch on a few of them, but the main event for today's show is his latest Bootleg Series release, Fragments, The Time Out of Mind Sessions, 1996 to 1997. Now, I remember when this album came out in 1997, and I just fell in love with it right away. It was the music, it was like Bob Dylan was back. He just had so much to say, and he had such energy and sound that was really interesting, but it wasn't that good. Now, I bought in 1997 the CD, and I thought it was kind of cramped sounding, a lot of stuff going on, dense mix, but it wasn't really coming together for me. It sounded kind of harsh and bright. So I bought the LP in 1997. It was actually a 2 LP set. It sounded pretty much exactly the same. So I was excited to see for the Bootleg Series, Time Out of Mind, disc 1 of the 5-disc set is the remixed version of Time Out of Mind by a man named Michael Brower. I gotta say, Mr. Brower did an amazing job. Now, a lot of these other bands doing remixes of their albums and stuff, they're kind of hit or miss. I'm not generally a fan. Even the Beatles stuff, I can still go back and listen to the earlier versions, not the latest remix versions of Beatles albums. But anyway, this one, today, the remixed Time Out of Mind, is so much better than the original version, because it's almost like Michael Brower decluttered the mix. He took out a lot of processing and screwing around with the sound of Dylan's voice, which, by the way, for this session, Dylan's voice was fed through a guitar amplifier. So in the original mix by Daniel Lanois, who produced the original version, he was using a combination of Dylan's voice going through a guitar amplifier, speaker, and then the sound of the microphone itself and mixing them together. So for this new version, there's appears to be a lot less of the guitar amp vocal and more of the mic vocal. And it sounds so much clearer. That's the point. This new version sounds, well, decluttered, clearer. It's less messy. The music just stands on its own without all these distractions going on. And I love it for that. I really, really do. And I gotta say, disc 2 and 3 are outtakes. And those are even more just hearing the band in the room. That's what I wanted all along. I just wanted to hear the band playing the music live in a studio without all that other stuff messing around with it. And that's what I got. And the very first track on the outtakes is a tune that's not a Dylan original. It's called The Water Is Wide. And it's just striking. And I'm thinking, wow, I wish this was on the early version, the original version of Time Out of Mind. But the different versions of this tune, Mississippi, which isn't even on, there's 6 different versions of Mississippi on Fragments. Then this song wound up on the next Dylan album called Love and Theft. But anyway, the outtakes are phenomenal because you hear the music coming together. You hear the process without all the processing and extra reverb and all that other stuff. So I love, love, love the sound of this Bootleg Series release. It is great. And you just hear Dylan working through the arrangements in the songs, how he slows down the tempo, he's speeding up, he's trying different things. And I keep thinking, pretty much every version I hear on Fragments is better than the released version of the album. Quick insert here. Disc 4 are live tracks, Time Out of Mind songs performed live in concerts, and Disc 5 are bonus tracks of outtakes and other tracks that didn't make it to the final version of the album. It's interesting to note that the original Time Out of Mind was produced by Daniel Lanois. Now, Daniel had also produced an earlier Dylan record, I think from 1989, Oh Mercy, which I think a lot of people really like and really like the sound of that record. But after this one, after Time Out of Mind, Dylan never again used any outside producers. He produced all of his records ever since 1997 entirely by himself, which is interesting. That I think he'd had a hard time articulating to producers what he wanted his records to sound like. In 2006, Dylan had an album out called Modern Times. And I thought it sounded particularly murky and not at all clear, and just kind of a sonic mess. And I wrote an article for Stereophile magazine, which I will link to below, talking about why this record sounded so disorganized and just kind of a blurry mess. I didn't use those words, but that's what it sounded like. And as I was working on writing that article for Stereophile, I stumbled upon an interview with Bob Dylan in Playboy magazine, of all places, sometime in the 1980s. And the interviewer asked Dylan, what's the best sounding Dylan record? And the answer was amazing. I would never have guessed that Dylan would have picked this one. But Dylan said in this interview in the 80s that his album Blonde on Blonde, which I think came out in '66, was his best sounding album. But the good part is that he explained why he thought it was his best sounding album. And he said that it was because it was the one that was closest to what he wanted it to sound like. You know, from what it started like in his head and the final product that everybody got to hear, it was closer than anything else. And that's why he thought it was the best sounding. And I can't argue with that logic. I personally don't think it's a great sounding record, but at least I understand what Dylan was shooting for and he achieved with Blonde on Blonde. And that is definitely noteworthy. Now, in my opinion, I think that Blood on the Tracks is the best sounding, most audiophile, most just well-sorted mix. The band sounds great, he sounds great, and it just really comes together. And I think it's a much loved record. And I think it counts as one of Dylan's comeback records. Blood on the Tracks does. So that's one of the few really good sounding Bob Dylan albums. But you know, the thing is, Bob Dylan has been making records since 1962. That's 61 years ago. I think we're beyond worrying about what Dylan records sound like. It's really about the music. When you go back to Bootleg Series Volume 4, this one, live at Albert Hall, which I know wasn't actually recorded at Albert Hall in England. But this is Dylan as he's going electric. And a lot of people were familiar before this came out with the electric set that he did, which everybody freaked out over because they wanted Bob Dylan to be still a folk singer and be acoustic. But I didn't know until I got this CD set that he also did an all-acoustic set. Actually, the acoustic set preceded the electric set. And hearing that, he is just so amazing. His words, just the way he sings, that sound, and thing that he does with his voice, it still blows me away. The acoustic music is phenomenal. The electric music is totally electric, so charged. To this day, this record is still spine-tingling in its intensity. So Bootleg Series Volume 4 is highly, highly, highly recommended. Bootleg Series Volume 6, live in New York at Philharmonic Hall. Now, what I love about this one is he's younger, not that much younger, but he's younger enough that he sounds giddy on stage. He is having such a great time. This appreciative audience, it just has this freshness to it that is remarkable. To hear the really youthful Bob Dylan just learning how to be Bob Dylan is staggering. And you hear him evolving through these recordings that I'm talking about right now. You know, if you're just now getting into Bob Dylan, the record to start with is Highway 61 Revisited. If that's it. That is absolute maximum Bob Dylan. Your mind will be blown if you haven't heard this music before. Matter of fact, when I heard Like a Rolling Stone on the radio in 1965, I guess, everything stopped. Beatles, everybody else, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to hear Bob Dylan. And this This bootleg series, volume 12, The Cutting Edge, covers this period of Highway 61 and also Blonde on Blonde. And to hear the outtakes and to hear these songs developing and coming together and just the energy in the room bouncing around those studio walls, and to hear his producer talking to him over the talkback and he's laughing and just it's unbelievable. It still sounds that way to me. Anyway, yeah, Bob Dylan has been a big figure in my music appreciation of my coming of age, and it never dates for me. And you know, even though the recording quality isn't ideal, it fits the music. It has this pushy, aggressive, mid-range edge. You just feel the energy coming out of your speakers. Yeah, it doesn't get better than this. I gotta say, I own nearly every Dylan Bootleg Series album. I think I might miss one or two, but I really treasure them. But you know, I've been a lifelong fan of Bob Dylan. We've grown old together. He's actually a lot older than me, right? But anyway, we've grown old together, and that is one of the best things about an artist with a career that spans so many decades, is that you're along with them for the ride. That's really something. So anyway, speaking of really something, it is now time for the Audiophiliac Viewer system of the day. This beautiful system comes to us from Jeffrey. He lives in Columbus, Ohio. Speakers are Focal Canta 2. Amp, Macintosh 452. Preamp is also a Macintosh, a C2200 with upgraded Telefunken tubes in the line stage and gold lions in the phono stage. Turntable, Riga P6 with an exact moving magnet cartridge. For CD replay, there's a Rotel RCD 1072, which he's going to upgrade soon. DAC is a Denafreps Pontus 2. Cables are by AudioQuest. And the amp stand was designed and finished and built by Jeffrey. Thanks, Jeffrey. Okay, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and it's true. I am the Audiophiliac. This is the genuine article, except no substitutes. There are people who are imposters. Steve Guttenberg imposters. I know that seems nuts, but they're out there. No, this is it. Anyway, if you dig what I'm doing here on the channel, with music things and interviews and reviews and thought pieces and Audiophiliac Viewer systems of the day, please consider joining my Patreon. The address is on the screen right now. You can join for a couple of bucks a month and on up. Patreon accepts payment in dollars, pounds, and euros. What else? Well, if you just like these videos, please hit the like button. And if you have yet to subscribe, we just hit 230,000 subscribers. Please like, please subscribe. And with that, I can say my work here is finally and at last complete. Thank you so much for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.